According to the hotel map, she had entered the ballroom, where many grand events had likely been taken place a long time ago. The floors, walls, and the ceiling were made of cement, aged and stained with wear. She grimaced as she saw roaches scurry away from the light of the lantern, hiding in the darkness of the room. The air was stale, with a hint of rusted iron lingering in it. Stepping forward into the room, she came to a top near the middle, her lantern illuminating a large red circle drawn on the ground. The red circle held an intricate design, consisting of a large outer ring that contained runic symbols and writing, while the three smaller circles sat in the middle. The symbols had clearly been drawn out of blood, and while it looked arcanine, Octavia couldn't even for the life of her depict pictures of its meaning. As an earth pony, magic had always been beyond her. All right, I'm in the ballroom, now what? She asked herself, looking around the empty room. There was furniture wrapped in white cloth around the edges of the room, but that was it. There were no clues, no riddles, nor nothing for her to pick up. It was just an empty room. So wait, all of this was just that for nothing? The riddles, the gems, the monsters? Just it all led to an empty room? Octavia gritted her teeth as she felt the anger bubbling. The world wasn't just about leading her in circles now. It was actively wasting her time. Ugh, I hate this place. With nothing else to do, she decided that at least to check out the hallways on the other side of the room to see if anything had changed before she left the hotel. Once she stepped up through the door, her hoof touched down on the metal grating. She realized that something had changed. A bottomless pit was now visible throughout the ringlets of the ground. The walls had been replaced with rusted sheets of metal. The ceiling was cement, and everything that looked like it had been stained with blood. What? Octavia gasped in shock at the sight, looking around, unable to believe what she was seeing. The world had changed at the blink of an eye. What's going on? The ballroom should be next exit out of the hallway. This should be somewhere I've already been. Not like this. She looked around desperately for a clue as to what happened. Panic was already starting to set in, and her heart was thumping loudly against her chest. It was then she noticed that the ceiling was a sign of two arrows. One pointed at the door that she had just left, saying ballroom, and the other pointing across that said pool. There was really the same hallway as before, but it had transformed. Something had changed it to its nightmare metal of blood. I have to get out of here. Octavia stepped back, the panic fully taking over. This place isn't safe. I have to go. She flipped on her other heels and tried to push open the door she just walked out of open, desperately to leave the hotel. The door was jammed shut, refusing to let her in. Her eyes widened in horror as she stepped back from it, each of her steps causing the metal grating to creak loudly. She fell into a sitting position, staring in disbelief. Okay, calm down, Octavia. Octavia lifted her hooves and hugging herself, her body shaking from the panic. There has to be a reason for this. There has to be. She then shook her head, squeezing her eyes shut as she held herself. You just have to find a way out. You'll be okay. You'll be okay. She took several deep breaths, taking control of her panic and calming it down. The fear she felt was still there, but she wanted to at least be able to function again. You are accustomed to the hardships, Octavia. You can make it through this. She shook her head, taking one last deep breath before standing back up. This is no different from when you moved to Manhattan. Just handle everything one hoof at a time. Stepping forward, she found that the path to the pool had been previously blocked off, was now completely open. She swallowed her nerves and stepped inside the dark pool area, instantly feeling the cool chill of the night, air rushing down on her. This area at least had solid cement ground, which instantly felt safer to walk on. Her lantern then illuminated the empty pool, then sat in the middle of the courtyard. That had likely once been a pool chairs were scattered about, now rusted with metal meshes and their former selves. The pool itself had a splatter of blood down towards its deep end, right in front of what looked like a giant marl. Stepping from the shallow end, she then walked to the length of the pool and held her lantern up to examine the image. It was a picture of a female pony, faceless with a book open, as if she was reading out loud. Golden lines stretched out from underneath into the large, thin, rectangular dent in the wall. What looked like something was supposed to be placed in it. Possible multiple somethings. Just looking at it made her realize what it meant. Search the area, find the clues, solve the riddle. I'm sensing a pattern here. Octavia grumbled, turning around and making her way back. But what's this all for? She wasn't so sure if she was making any progress on finding Pinky or Bellamina. She wasn't even sure if she could save Ellie at this point. She was doing everything in her power to survive, and that was just only going to have to be enough. Octavia hesitated for a moment, staring down where the metal grating had met with the solid concrete. Being able to see it through and not see the bottom was incredibly unnerving. If the metal couldn't hold her weight, or if it broke for any reason, she would be sent tumbling down into the abyss. And Celestia knew how long it would be before she died from hitting the bottom, if she even ever did. One hoof hesitantly tested the strength of the metal, then another and another. In one front of the other, she began to make her way through for the transformed hotel. The metal grating seemed to hold her weight. She had just had to pray that it stayed that way. At the end of the hallway of the path opened up to her right, with bars that she had previously blocked her path, now to her left. Her path now as the front lobby of the hotel was now blocked off, and in the inaccessible area before it was now open. No way out of this as it seems, she murmured quietly, turning to continue down the dark hallway. That should have been room 107 appeared to her left, although the door had been replaced with a fixed slab of metal. The door lacked any kind of handle, and it had been welded into the metal frame around it. A single look at it had told her that there was no way she was getting inside. At least she could tell from the glance of the room was blocked off, rather than having to test each door one by one. She stepped further down the hall, approaching the next room where she was stopped by the hiss of her own phonograph. In the dark ahead of her, she could hear a familiar squelching sound and footsteps dangling against the metal growing closer. A licker was heading straight for her. Not wanting to confront another one of those hideous abominations so soon, she quickly shoved down her lantern and took it to room 108's door. Though this one had also a flick slab of metal, it had clearly been marked with a handle and looked like it might open. She ran up to the door and tried giving the handle a good shove, finding that it did open up for her. The door let out a rattling creak as it opened, and the licker let out its loud screech at the noise before picking up its pace. She shoved her shoulder against the door, quickly sealing it shut behind her, as the noise of her phonograph instantly died. She pressed her ear against the door to see if she could hear the licker, but it seemed that nothing could get through the thick metal door. Since her phonograph was silent, she assumed that it was out of harm's way. With that comfort in mind, she turned around and lifted the lantern up to look at the room she just entered, and grimaced at the sight. It looked like some kind of torture rooms. Chains and shackles were hooked up to the walls, whips and rods were hung up, butcher hooks hang from the corners, and flat bed covered in blood was strapped sat in the middle of the room. It was a gruesome some meant to harm other ponies. What kind of madman creates such a place? Octavia said with disgust, pushing down the bile that she felt rising in the back of her throat. Something glinted in her in the light of the lantern. She stepped closer to the table to investigate. In the center of the pile of blood was a tile with a beautiful picture drawn on it. Picking it up to get a better look, she saw that the picture was rather imitating. It depicted a white pony looming over the cage with a much younger pink pony that had been locked inside, while an oven was cooking behind them. It looks like it's the right size to fit in the mural. She then spoke hesitantly, not wanting to keep this scary-looking tile. She then had to trust her instincts on this one, quickly pocketing the tile into her saddlebag. The sooner I get out of here, the better. With the torture room offering no other clues to her search, she went back to the metal door and gulped down in apparition. She grabbed the handle and pulled it up with a bit of effort, the door loudly creaking as it opened. Her phonograph was silent for the moment, and she stuck out her head out to ensure the coast was clear. The licker was nowhere in sight, so she had to close the door behind her and continue to make her way down the hall. Turning to another corner and passing by two more closed doors, she came to a stop in front of the door that stood out of the metallic hell. It was a wooden door with fancy engravings carved into some sort of VIP room. The door had a golden faceplate on it, with rusted with age, labeling the door Room S102. It was the nicest door that she had seen since entering Ponyville that day, so it was meant something. She stepped up to the door and tried to open it, finding the door to be locked tight. Octavia furrowed her brow at the door, wondering if she had to wander around until she found the key. Given her track record, she would likely have to, but it was worth trying to find the key she had. Pulling out the silver key, she placed it at the door's lock and turned it. The door let out a click, opening it up for the cur as the key vanished into a pile of ash. "Oh!" Octavia's surprised, having not to expect that to work. "So this is the room. I wasn't actually expecting to find it here." She then turned her head and looked back at the hall of metal, rust, and blood that somehow was dangling precariously over the bottomless pit. A beautiful ordinary door, just like it didn't fit in with this hell of landscape. Taking a deep breath and steel herself for anything, she pushed open the door and walked inside. Inside the room was surprisingly okay, given the nature that she was where she was. It was likely a fancy hotel room, with beautiful drapes and lining the windows and walls, a gorgeous bed made out of fine silks and plush pillows, several sofas and soft chairs around a small table, and even a small kitchen area for brewing teas or snacks. All of it has worn down with age, covered in coat of dust and scratches. Most of it looked unsuitable now, any metal having rust over or the cushions having lost their lift. The room had also stank of the stale blood. The scent was she was starting to get used to. Her eyes wandered over towards the bed, instantly spotting the source of the smell. A liquor was dead on the sheets, its tongue hanging over the edge of the bed, laying on the pool of its long-since rotted blood. "At least it's not a fret," she murmured to herself, although she didn't feel very uncomfortable around it. She stepped towards the body first, lifting the lantern to look at it. The creature was paler than its other counterparts, likely due to the severe blood loss it had suffered from. There was a long gash that ran between its legs and up to its bulbous head, and that had clearly been the cause of its demise. A folder letter was placed just underneath the head. She carefully grabbed the letter and pulled it out from under her body, watching it carefully for a moment. When it remained still, she took several steps back before looking at the envelope in her hoof. It had been a bit more weight than she expected a simple letter to save, so she quickly tore it open and pulled out the letter. "Hey, darling, I am so glad we get to spend such a wonderful day together. You are a really awesome sweetheart. I know that thing you wanted to do when you were a little more expensive was than usual, but I sure do hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Our time together always seems to be so short, but I am glad I was able to take all that stresses away. I hope I'll get to see you again soon, sweetie, and if you ever need a helping hoof to ease those troubles of yours, you know where to find me. Yours truly, Pinks." The letter had been finished with the exaggeration kiss in bright pink lipstick. This was clearly a response letter to the stallion that had been so desperate for her sister's attention. And this letter, she didn't want to believe it was written by her sister, but the hoofwriting matched. A little more flowery than what her sister would write, but it would have all the same trappings, is dotted with circles, and the way she curved her S's in spacing, everything about it. Of course, her name was signed at the bottom of the pink lipstick. Octavia felt her stomach churn at the thought of her sister doing something like this, or of her being involved in this. Pinky was sweet, gentle, and caring soul who loved her and went around her. She wasn't some two-bit floozy who goes around using her body for this. The letter crumpled in her hoof. This was completely unacceptable. She wasn't going to stand for this. She was going to get to the bottom of this and find out who was tarnishing her sister's good name. Pinkie Pie was the sweetest, kindest, most loving pony she had ever known, and she would let no one destroy her reputation. "Hung?" Octavia blinked in surprise, reaching a hoof up to her face. She wiped away a tear that had fallen, staring at her hoof in confusion. "What? Why am I—" She looked at her head, wiped her face again, brushing her tears away. She didn't have time for this. She had to find her sister. Tossing the letter away, she checked the envelope once again, reaching in and pulling out two things. The first plane was a bronze key that looked like a and the other was a business card. The stained saddle? Octavia glowered at the business card. It had a silhouette of a mare posted proactively next to the name, with curvy lines all over it. If I make it out of here, I have some questions for them. She stuffed the key in the business card away in her saddlebag and made her way for the door. There was a fire burning inside of her now. She wasn't going to let this world stop her from finding her sister. The hallway was still empty, so she continued down the path with purpose with her step. The hallway came to an end this time. Through the metal bars blocked her path going right, and the only way forward was the stairwell that led up to the second floor. The stairs let out creaking groans with each hoof step, as if they were threatening to break under her weight. Each step was just a sheet of metal procrastinately attached to the walls, and though through the cracks of each step, she could see down with the infinite abyss. It didn't take long to reach the top of the stair, stepping onto the second floor of the hotel, despite the fact that she knew the first floor was below her. She couldn't see through the grating, but she made it stepped up on the floor. Perhaps the bottomless as I thought, she murmured with under her breath, although I am not sure if that's better or worse. Room S203 was the first door to her right and at the top of the stairs, and its door was remarkably normal. It wasn't a slab metal or ordinarily decorated door like the last one. It was just an ordinary wooden door, just like the one she would find in her apartment building. Curiously drawn on it, she stepped up and pushed it, walking into the new room. She stopped with a gasp of what she saw. "So this will be your place," and gruff older stallion said, pulling a string turned to the light. A tiny little apartment was barely anything to speak of. The living room, the bedroom, the kitchen were all smashed together into a single living space. Only the bathroom had the decency of being its own room, even if that had barely been a room for the shower and the toilet inside of it. Rent's cheap, but rent is still rent. Given how pathetic your deposit it was, I take it you have no steady work yet. No, sir, not yet," a much younger Octavia muttered, filling the old stallion's invitation. "But I do plan to start job hunting right away. I'll have your first rent payment by the start of the month. No problem." "You better," he said with a grunt, turning for the door. "I got too many ponies who've been trying to get freeholders as if you don't have the money, then I'm kicking you out." Of course, I won't let you down," Octavia blurted out, just as the older stallion closed the door behind him. Octavia was now alone. She turned back around to face it, looking at the crammed, dingy little apartment that was apparently hers now. "All right, Octavia, this is it. This is your chance at starting a new life," she affirmed to herself, nodding with a hopeful smile. "Manhattan, the city that never sleeps. I'll make my talents shine bright here. This town won't know what hit it." It was a prideful boast, just to be sure, but the one that failed to hide the nervousness and anxiety that filled the young pony's heart. This is my old apartment." It had seen better days, but the layout was exactly the same. A small one-room and economically designed apartment that had everything crammed in together in one tiny space. Out of all the furniture that was torn to shreds and scattered everywhere, dust and grime covered the walls, counters, and even the stains smeared everything. But she could never forget the sight of that place that she always ever wanted to live from home. What? What is it doing here?" she gasped in confusion. Stepping further into the room, looking around with her light, she spotted an old torn up concert poster that she had put up as an inspiration. That bad stain from where she had spilled her coffee, the dent on the wall from where she had run into it, and even the position of the furniture that had been where she left it. There was no doubt that in her mind it was her old apartment. How was that even possible? Confusion and worry filled her, until her hoof stepped on something and crinkled. She turned to lift her hoof. Now looking down, it was one of Pinky's old letters lying on the ground, next to what appeared to be another of the tiles. She took a step back before picking up the crumpled paper from her careless hooves and read it. "Hey sis, I just got your letter from Manhattan, and I had to write back right away. I know your special talents sent to you to that city, but I really miss you all already. Everything will feel so lonely without you around, but I'm going to be a big girl and just like you told me to be. But when you do think I'll be able to visit you, I want to see you where you'll be living from now on. I want to throw you a big surprise party there too. Not exactly a proper home one like you've had congratulations on your new home pinky party there, right? I certainly wouldn't imagine living somewhere that hadn't thrown a party at yet. I know you could do it though. I miss you so much. You have to let me visit soon and make it a pinky promise and when we can meet up again. I promise I will have so many amazing stories to tell you. I'll make a lot of new friends so I won't miss you as such. And I'll work super extra hard for the cakes so you don't have to be worrying about me sending money. I miss you, Octavia. Please write back to me soon. I want to write a letter to you every day so that I know how much I love you as much as you love me. You're the best sister in the whole wide world, Pinky. Octavia felt something sharp tug at her heart, reading the old letter again. She had almost forgotten about the constant letters Pinky would send back to her during those days back in when Manhattan had been so terrifying. They had been a source of comfort, to know that what she is doing was the right thing, and that she would make it through her Manhattan days all right. She folded up the letter carefully, not wanting to damage the precious memory any more than she had, before slipping it into her saddlebag. I will find you, Pinky. I promise you I will. Picking up the next title, she examined it curiously. She could see on it two young ponies, one pink and a gray-blue one, an older dark gray pony walking from them in the background. All three of them appeared to be some kind of wooded area. The two younger ponies looked as if they were lost, and she clearly didn't have enough pieces together to understand how things went together yet. So she slipped on the tile into her bag before giving the old apartment another look over. Is this what happened to it after I left? She wondered to herself. It's been so long since I've been here. Despite how many memories the apartment she had to keep moving on if she wanted to find her sister. Certain she had everything value, she wanted to make her way back out of the hall. The loud ringing of her phonograph broke out the moment her hooves touched the metal, her head whirling to see a licker approaching her from behind the edge of her light. It squelched loudly as its muscles moved around its bulbous head, its tongue quickly sliding out. Octavia's eyes widened in shock, quickly stepping back in to put some distance between her and the creature. The licker's tongue fully extended from its mouth, flicking through the air, looking for its prey. Pinky flashed in her mind her innocent young sister, her smile so bright that she managed her sister trapped into this town, cornered one by these creatures, just like she had been. She saw its tongue slithering across Pinky's body while she cried out in pain. She saw Pinky's blood being splattered against the wall, as this creature had its way with her. Anger replaced with rationally rage consumed her instincts. She was not going to let this world have her way with her sister. The licker screeched loudly as its tongue flailing loudly as it found its prey. Octavia rushed forward, quickly drawing the knife to bear down the creature. The fleshly tongue came crashing down against the metal grating as Octavia barely dodged it, letting out a battle cry as she slammed the knife down to the licker's head. Piercing screech filled out the hall as the licker flailed its body. The thick tongue flicked through the air with incredible speed, slamming into her chest with a powerful thud. Her air instantly escaped her body as she was tossed into the air, slamming into the hallway wall. Pain soared through her body as she held herself up against a wall, so much that even her breathing caused her agony, to which heavy breaths ripping through her lungs like a knife. She gritted her teeth and glared down at the monster, watching its body slosh around as it turned to face her. Octavia refused to have it this way, as she pushed it off the wall with a furious cry, rushing straight up to the creature again, and the tongue came crashing down, this time striking her back with its full, unrelenting force. Octavia screamed from the pain, but used a moment against the creature. Her hoof rushed up and wrapped around its neck, while the other came up grabbing the knife and stabbed it back into the creature. The knife let out a sickening squelch as it pierced through the monster's flesh, echoing alongside the loud scream from the licker and a cry from Octavia. Blood splattered everywhere with each slab, staining a metal with a richer red. The creature began to stumble, with the tongue grew slow, until finally the creature's body fell with a thud. Octavia panted loudly, crouched low over the creature's body. They slowly withdrew the blade, watching as the color drained from its body and the blood trickled through from the grating. The liquor was dead, as the second one she had killed. She had put the knife away in her bag and stepped away, only for her chest to roar in pain. She cried out, collapsing onto her sides, holding her chest, feeling like she was going to be brief and breath might be her last. Her body shuddered from the pain as her breathing grew ragged and shallow, trying desperately to figure out what was wrong. There was so much pain she couldn't handle it. A fire was ripping through her and she needed to stop it. She reached her hoof desperately for her bag, looking for anything that might stop the pain. Her hoof had landed on the bottle that she had gotten from the vending machine. She quickly pulled it out. If this health drink really did what it claimed to do, then she needed it now. She ripped off the cap of her teeth before chugging down the contents hungrily. The taste of bitter herbs with a hint of strawberry began to wash over her mouth as she slowly swallowed the last drop. When the bottle was empty, she pulled off her lips with a loud gasp and stuttered before tossing the empty bottle aside and waited for the effects to kick in. It would be several seconds before a gentle warmth filled her lungs. Her breathing grew steady and the pain began to fade from her mind. She could still feel it there, but it seemed that the drink wasn't lying about being a painkiller. Some of her strength was even returning, as she was able to push herself to stand. Her body gently shook, but the pain was at least tolerable now. Bastard! Octavia hissed, glancing over at the dead monster with a glare. She then spat at the creatures in disgust, and then she picked up her lantern and continued her way down the hall. She focused on keeping her breath steady as she walked past by the other sealed door before coming upon room S201. This door was made of the same thick metal as room 108, and she figured nothing happy could be behind it. Pressing her hooves together against the door, she shoved it open, the door loudly screeching in protest of her arrival. Something in the room skittered across the darkness, causing Octavia to jump. She lifted her lantern quickly and looking around for what had just moved. The room's walls and floor were made of thick metal, while what may have been broken furniture covered in stained white tarps were placed all around the room. It looked as if long ago someone had wanted to move into this room, but something had gone terribly wrong. Rather than throw everything out, what they had just wrapped it up in the sheets. A faint whimper came from one of the darker corners of the room, and she swelled in pain as the lantern in its direction. "Who's there?" Octavia called out. "Go away!" a little filly's voice cried, immediately dashing out of the corner that she had been hiding from another. The filly's familiar coat and mane passed through the lantern as she rushed behind with a piece of furniture. "Ellie!" Octavia cried out in elevated surprise. "Oh, thanks, Celestia, you're all right. I've been looking everywhere for you." Ellie's tiny head half peeked out from behind the broken pieces of furniture, glaring at Octavia. "Liar!" Ellie accused. "You haven't been looking for me at all. You just stumbled here on accident." I didn't know where you were. I had no choice but to check all the rooms that you could have been in anywhere." Octavia stepped forward, trying to explain herself. "I swear I've been looking for you. It's too dangerous for a filly to be out here wandering alone. These monsters are out in the halls here, and I need to get you out of here before something really bad happens to you. My mom told me never to talk to strangers, and you're being really strange right now." Ellie glowered, still refusing to come out. "I haven't seen a single monster, and how do you know you're not the monster?" Octavia let out a groan of frustration at this filly. "Aren't the past a whole not talking to strangers speech at this point? This is our first time meeting, and of course, I'm not a monster. Monsters want to hurt innocent fillies like you, and I don't want that at all." "I don't believe you," Ellie declared, ducking behind the couch, disappearing from the sight. "Prove that you're not a monster then." "Prove it?" Octavia blinked at the idea. "How am I supposed to prove that?" "That's for you to find out. I'm not traveling with any monsters." Ellie let out a huff at annoyance from her hiding spot, her mind seemingly made up. Octavia let out a groan of frustration, taking a hoof and running down her face. She didn't have time to play games with Ellie, not if she was going to get her out of this hotel in safety. What in Equestria could she do to convince Ellie that she wasn't a monster? You've got a really beautiful voice, sis. How come you don't sing anymore? Octavia's eyes slowly widened at the words of her younger sister crossed her mind. That was right. A long time ago she had done something special for her sisters. Closing her eyes and took a deep breath, and she began to sing. In a dream so long ago, of flowers in the warm moonlight, foals would be played the day away in perfect harmony. Land so rich and beautiful was very far away. Those who get to see their grace, they were truly blessed. Fields of gray, rock, and dirt stretch beyond that dream. For those who have fallen lose their dreams, they come to call this home. Her voice grew quiet as the last note of the song lingered in the air. It had been so long since she had last sung that piece, and having since give up on adding her voice to her career, her passion was the classical pieces that she performed. Adding her voice to them never felt right. The sound of cloth shifting caught Octavia's ear, and she lifted her head up to look at Ellie, who was now standing in the open. Her brow was furrowed, as if she was confused and fought, but she had come out of her hiding spot. Octavia couldn't help but offer her a gentle smile. Was that satisfactory? Octavia asked curiously. You've got a nice voice, Ellie murmured, seeming to be thinking about it deeply. All right, fine then, I'll go with you. But don't start acting weird, okay? She huffed and stepped closer to Octavia. Adults always act out weird around kids, and I don't like it. I'll do my best, Ellie. Although for your safety, you'll be my top priority. If you stay behind me or get to safety, you listen to me, all right? Octavia stated firmly, making sure Ellie understood the severity of the situation. Ah, you're already acting weird, Ellie huffed. I'm a big girl. I can take care of myself. I'm being serious, Ellie. It's not that I doubt your ability to take care of yourself, but I just don't want you to get hurt either. So just do as I say until we get out of here, okay? Octavia reaffirmed her position to the filly. Fine, just lead the way already. Ellie then rolled her eyes, growing impatient with her adult companion. Thank you. That's all I ask, Octavia said with a relieved sigh, turning back towards the door. It is safer for us to go stick together, so let's head out. With Ellie now in tow, Octavia pushed through open the door and re-entered the metal hallway. She quickly glanced around for danger before making her way down the hallway. Ellie stuck to her side as they wandered throughout the hallway, the sound of their hooves loudly echoing against the metal. A cool draft waved through the hall as Octavia pushed, turning to her left. The metal wall broke off, revealing the large dark hole that seemed to be lead into the abyss. The tear into the open expanse extended out, along with the rest of the hallway, giving the hallway a soft breeze. Do you think anyone would care if we went swimming? Ellie asked curiously, sticking her head out over the edge of the hallway down into the abyss. Octavia couldn't see anything past the pitch-black abyss, but one story down, she'd be looking at the pool area of the hotel. Well, even if no one cared, there's no water in the pool at the moment, Octavia said with a shake of her head, reaching out to the filly and pulled her back a little. Also, don't stand so close to the edge. It'd be dangerous if you fall off. I wasn't going to fall. Even I know better than that. Ellie scoffed with a roll of her eyes before continuing forward. Octavia just shook her head and quickly followed the young filly, not letting her out of her sight. The door to room 209 came into view, and Octavia came to a stop in front of the door as Ellie kept walking. Ellie, wait! Octavia spoke up, causing the filly to turn around and her head confused. I'm still looking for my sisters, and I found a note saying they might be here. I need to check the rooms for clues that might lead to them. Fine, whatever. I guess I'll follow wherever you go. Ellie was already clearly annoyed, but the compliments that she had turned around and walked back up to Octavia's side. Octavia gave her a nod and a smile before grabbing the metallic handle of the door, pushing it open. The room was smaller than the others had been, with age with wood making up the floor and the walls. There was a torn-apart small metal bed head pressed up against the wall, a broken dresser on the other, a small toilet next to it, and between them on the other wall was a large window covered in bars. The room felt strangely familiar to Octavia. On one hoof it felt like it was supposed to be someone's personal bedroom, with the aged wood and bed on the dresser. and on the other, the toilet and the metal bars made it like a jail cell. It is as if the two rooms have been merged into one. I don't see any pony, Ellie said, quickly giving a quick look around the empty room. It seems that way. Like, I'd still like to search it real quick, though, as some pony may have left in a clue or something. Octavia explained, stepping further into the room. Fine, Ellie exasperated, moving closer to the bed and hopping on top of it. She let out a childish sigh and flopped over onto it, staring up at the ceiling as she waited for Octavia to finish up with her boring adult stuff. With that being there, nothing obvious to hear near the bed, Octavia turned around her attention towards the dresser. There was nothing on top, so she grabbed the hold of the dresser drawer and pulled it open. Inside, she found one of the square hair tiles, just like the others that she had found. This one depicted an older gray mare closer to the front, who looked clearly angry, agitated with two younger ponies playing behind her. It was the same pink and gray-blue fillies as before. Having found what she was looking for, she quickly stuffed it into her saddlebag and gave the room a one last look over. She couldn't even shake the feeling that the room was familiar, but with nothing that sprang into her mind, all she could do was just head on out. "Did you find anything what you were looking for?" Ellie asked curiously, having noticed Octavia put something away into her bag. "I did, and it should hopefully help me lead to my sisters," Octavia said with a nod, making her way out of the room. "Let's keep moving." The empty hallway felt colder now, the night's chilly air washing through open half of the hallway. It made Octavia feel uneasy, this whole world, but the chill of the air only made everything more obnoxious. They passed by another sealed door that they were approaching next to the room where Octavia's phonograph began to ring. She froze on the spot, her eyes widening as she heard the familiar sloshing begin to approach the two of them. Her heart jumped into her throat as her eyes snapped down to Ellie, who was just continuing forward, unaware of the danger that was heading straight for them. "Hey, hey, Ellie!" cried out in surprise as Octavia rushed forward, scooping the filly up in her hooves. She rushed forward just far enough to reach to room 207 and slammed her shoulder against it. The door gave away a loud clang as they stumbled inside. The liquor let out a loud screech in response to the loud crash, only fueling Octavia's adrenaline. She rammed her shoulder against the door again, slamming the heavy metallic door shut. She pressed herself up against the door hard, ensuring that it would stay closed if the monster tried to force itself in. Her phonograph had died down, and at the moment she closed the door, but with Ellie standing there, she wasn't going to take the risk, if anything, if she had to. "Hey, let go of me!" Ellie thrashed away violently against Octavia's grip on her. One of the little filly's flailing limbs struck against her tender spot on Octavia's chest, causing the mare to his pain and let go of the filly. Octavia quickly wrapped her hooves around her torso, wincing as she watched Ellie bounce into the center of the room, turning to glare at her. "What was that all about?" Ellie yelled, glaring at Octavia. "You said you wouldn't be weird." Ellie stomped her hoof, huffing in anger. "I'm sorry, but there was a monster in front of us." Octavia then shook her head, still reeling from having her chest kicked. "I had to get us out of danger and fast." "Monster? I didn't see any monster." Ellie huffed, stomping her hoof. "You're just making things up." "Didn't you hear it? It knew we ran here and it cried out at us." Octavia then pointed at the door in disbelief. "If I hadn't brought us in there, it would have attacked us." "Liar, this is why I don't like adults. They're nothing but liars," Ellie growled. Octavia then opened her mouth to respond, but stopped when she noticed the room they had entered. It was a fairly large room with cement for the walls and floor, but it was littered with large gray rocks everywhere. In the corners they were stacked up high and spilled out towards the center. Ellie blinked a few times and turned around just to look at the room as well. The two of them were staring at the strangeness of it. For Octavia, no, though it's the shape of the rocks that only brought back memories.